And now another no-brainer money-saving tip from Progressive.
It looks like your luggage is over 50 pounds. Is there anything you can take out?
Oh yeah, let me just toss all these $20 bills.
Great. Let me grab you a trash can.
Stop. Instead of throwing money away, move some clothes into a carry-on. And here's a better tip from Progressive on how not to waste money. Don't pay too much for car insurance. Drivers who switch and save could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
The Louisiana Swamplands. Out here, you're either lunch or you're enjoying it. Make sure you end up on top with the all-powerful lineup of Kia SUVs, like the Telluride, Sportage, and Sorento, equipped with available all-wheel drive, higher ground clearance, and the interior capacity to bring everything you need, so you'll always remain more than a gator's length ahead. Visit your local Kia dealer today to find your next adventure in our ever-capable lineup of SUVs. Kia, movement that inspires.
Call 800-3334-KIA for details. Always drive safely.
Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, also the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, check out 5reasonsports.com. Plenty of writers there writing really good stuff, and it's free. We do not have a paywall. We do it on the Heat, the Dolphins, the Marlins, the Panthers, the Hurricanes, and all the teams in town. And check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This episode's coming out a little bit earlier on Sunday because we know that you're all watching the Super Bowl. Do I have to call it the big game? Is the NFL going to sue me? If you are, it should be an interesting game, but you make it more interesting with Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E, get your initial deposit matched up to $100. We did episodes all week on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel getting you ready. We went through the quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, the defense and special teams. We gave you our prized picks. So check it out on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. That'll help you play. But the most important thing is get your free money. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E, get your initial deposit matched up to $100. You can't play if you don't deposit. That's how this thing works. And then pair the players together. The Patrick Mahomes Square is free. It's free. You can play it for $25 with anything else, up to $25. All he's got to do is throw for one passing yard. That's it. Okay? So it's basically a free square. Pair him with something else. You get one right, you win money. Go to Prize Picks. Go to Google Play Store, Apple App Store, or prizepicks.com and use that code F-I-V-E. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Bucket said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop the one hand.
Was an overtime.
And
so we're not going to sit here and pretend that everything is fixed. They played 2 lottery teams.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo,
of each of those games. But in the second game, a little bit different because they got a strong performance from Gabe Vincent as a starter again, but they also got a really good performance from Max Strus. And Bam was tremendous defensively down the stretch of that game. And they pulled it out. And they were down 17 in that game. So this wasn't a question of them blowing a big lead and having to figure out. This was them against a team that honestly has a lot of young talent and a lot of size. And they had to figure out a way to win, and they did. And so we will do an episode over the next week about why they're succeeding in the clutch. We're probably jinxing that before they play the Nuggets and the Nets these next 2 games. But why it's working in the clutch, because their clutch numbers actually this year are very good, but mostly because of their defense. And we will talk about why that is. But we're going to use Alex and Brady for that. Greg and I are going to do a transaction episode here. Yes, there's still a transaction episode to do. I said I would not do this. We're doing it. So here you go, okay? Buyout season. And Greg, I've said this many times. Fans always make too much of this. I feel like I'm killing the episode before we start. Because there is not a great history for the Heat or any other team with buyout candidates. You are getting mostly damaged goods. Now, I feel like this season is a little different because there was so much activity, 50 transactions or something like that made on trade deadline day. And there's so much parity in the league this year that good players or players who were really good, who may still have something left to offer, ended up getting moved, or other players got moved to teams which made other players more expendable. And that player may have more value on a different team where he's a better position fit than on the team that he's currently on. And so I do think there's more potential to find a useful player. And also with the Heat's rotation struggles where their roster is so top heavy right now, with so many guys out. Oladipo's still out. Spoelstra said that he may be back before the deadline. I'd heard he wouldn't be, so we'll see. Yurt's not going to be back before the deadline. And obviously Duncan Robinson's not going to be back before the deadline. So Haslam's out and not playing anyway. So they've got all of these dead roster spots right now. They're struggling to find 8 guys that they can play. So in that context, you look at some of these names, you're like, okay, they can help. So Greg, we're going to go through them. For the first list, let's get to the ones. First, let's address the 2 that we know there's no chance of getting. I'll just mention that before. Terrence Ross, who might have been a Heat fit as a shooter. He's killed the Heat in the past. Supposed to go to Dallas. He's going to Phoenix. That they convinced him to go to Phoenix. So that one is done. And Reggie Jackson is going to Denver, where actually I think he's a good fit there. So those 2 are off the board. I don't know what the Heat's interest would have been in either, but either of them I think could have helped them in their current situation. Let's get to the other guys we know are getting bought out, Greg.
Okay, so I think that you hit on something that we should highlight and preface before we get into the names specifically. And first, I think we should talk about the guys who've actually been bought out, and then we'll maybe run through some names that people have reported could be bought out, because I think that that's where this ends up becoming a much more exercise in depth and breadth of assortment of players to choose from versus just the guys who've been bought out so far. But in previous like buyout situations, Ethan, this usually is like 2 guys or 3 guys, something like that. And then you have like small groups of teams that could potentially be involved. Sometimes it was like at max 5 players that would get bought out at certain points. And you're right. There's never really that guy that goes somewhere and completely changes the complexion of something. That being said, there's more names now. Parity, salaries being moved for no damn reason other than their salaries to make trades fit. And the first name is Russell Westbrook. So there's some weird stuff going on with Russ right now in that there's talk of him potentially not accepting a buyout and just keeping his $47 million and staying in Utah and just being a part of whatever that looks like through the end of the year. I find that to be probably pretty unlikely. So that's buyout candidate 1, because I think eventually they're going to get there. I'll run through these names and then maybe you and I can go back and forth on what we think is best of them. John Wall is another guy who's going to get bought out, if not already on waivers through the buyout process. Serge Ibaka, another guy, landed in Indiana, bought out. Will Barton, bought out. Goga Bitkazi, he is a big man that was drafted recently by the Indiana Pacers. He was also released. James Johnson, we know and love some of us love James Johnson. He was waived by Indiana, but he's rumored to be back. He was in the stands, like sitting behind the bench in their last game, even though he had been waived. He's going to go back and be a veteran presence there, I think, once they clean up that roster. And the last guy who has been bought out is Bryn Forbes. So that's the list of guys who have been bought out that we can actually talk about. Then there's a laundry list of guys, and I think we'll get to them next, of who could be bought out and who could help. But who on that list jumps out to you as a player that could help Miami specifically?
Well, the only one that we know Miami has interest in is Westbrook, right? Like the interest in Ibaka has been there throughout the years, but it seems like it's coming more from his side. I don't know. I haven't heard of strong interest in them from strong interest from them in Ibaka, but we'll see. Even though of everybody on this list, he's the one who has the skill set, provided that it's still active in some way, that would actually help them, because he was a rim protector. He was a pretty good rebounder, and he could hit a mid-range jump shot and actually had some range that went beyond that. The Westbrook thing, here's all I'll say about that. I expect him to get bought out, but there is a case to be made for him staying and taking his money, other than the fact that he's had confrontations with Utah fans in the past.
Yeah,
they're 11th in the West, but again, the West, like, that doesn't mean anything. Like the number 6 team in the West was the Clippers, is 2.5 games ahead of them. The Pelicans are in the 7th spot. So, a home game and a play-in, they're a game and a half ahead of the Jazz. The Wolves are a game and a half ahead of the Jazz. The Warriors, again, we all expect them to be better, but Steph is out for a while. They're a game ahead of the Jazz. And the Thunder, who are in the last play-in spot, are a half game ahead of the Jazz. And the Jazz are tied with the Blazers. So, the Jazz are ahead of the Lakers. If we're going to sit here and LeBron's situation, we don't really know where that's going right now. They've added obviously a lot of depth. But you could make a case if you're Russ, just see this thing through, rebuild some value here. Maybe I can take this team to the play-in. There are good young players on that team. It wouldn't stun me if he stays and takes the money. He can justify taking the money and staying there. So I believe he's going to accept the buyout. But honestly, other than the fact that Billy Donovan, and he had a good relationship, the Bulls are no better position than the Jazz. The Bulls are 10th in the East.
Yeah.
They're 20s. They actually have a worse record.
And a tougher climb to get up. Yeah.
Right. They're a half game. They're behind the Wizards. I didn't even know the Wizards were up there. They're behind the Wizards. The Raptors are a half game behind the Bulls, and the Raptors added at the deadline instead of subtracting. So
yeah, that would have to be that he would be getting high usage. You know what I mean? I don't know about that. They said the Clippers as well. And then Miami has been mentioned by national folks, but I don't know. I know that they've looked in at Russ before. You and I both reported on the stuff with Russ, actually kind of when Jimmy first got here, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But times have changed. And I don't, if I had to be a betting man, I wouldn't bet that he landed in Miami. Would you?
But let me ask you this question, because some of this to me comes down to Depot for the Heat. Because to me, Gabe Vincent should start the rest of the way. I don't even know why this is a debate at this point. I've said over and over, I don't think Kyle Lowry is going to have a big role on this team going forward. First, Gabe did things last night in the Orlando game that Kyle doesn't do. He doesn't. I don't think they get to that loose ball if Kyle's on the floor. I just think there are things from an energy and effort standpoint that Gabe is doing, and I think you just let him grow into this. He's now, 8-3 as a starter, something like that this year. He's averaging over 15 points a game in those starts. You have an evaluation to make on him, as again we've discussed many times, about whether or not he can be kind of a complimentary starting point guard or something like that, what kind of money he deserves. Gabe Vincent should be the starter. They're not going to declare that, obviously, for many, many reasons. But the fact that their starting point guard in name only at this point is out indefinitely kind of tells you that. So this really comes down to Oladipo. I don't think, and I know this is counter to the fact that they played together in OKC and had a good relationship apparently, but I don't think you can play Russell Westbrook and Victor Oladipo off the bench together with the lack of shooting on this team. I just don't.
It'd be weird.
Right. So if that's the case, are they counting on Vic the rest of this year? Because now, I know Eric said he'll be back before the break, but it seems like every 3 weeks there's something else.
Yeah.
We didn't say he would be back before the break. He said he's the one who could be back before the break. I don't even know why you would do that. Just that's why I had heard that they were going to sit him. Let's just rest him, give him the extra week. But even then, we've seen good things from Vic, but it's never going to be more than 3 or 4 weeks at a time, it doesn't seem like. And can you count on him? So if they're not counting on him, then Westbrook becomes insurance
also
for Depot.
You're totally right. The Depot aspect of how Russ fits with this roster, you cannot deny that if they're both coming off the bench, how the hell is Zach going to look and work and everything else? But I also think that there's validity to this. And I know that Heat fans may squirm a bit, but just listen to me. Russell Westbrook is the ultimate reclamation project in so many ways. And I also think he has the cachet to where if Gabe Vincent has been starting recently and he were to come here and they said, okay, you're going to start next to Tyler as kind of the starting point guard, everyone bear with me here. I think that that's a scenario where Gabe would accept the fact that Russell Westbrook would get that opportunity. And so that could also be a selling point in bringing him here as a starting player. And then obviously you see where that goes. And I know people are going to cringe, but that, I just think that people should consider that that's a possibility too.
It is. Westbrook and Hero is a disaster waiting to happen also. Is it not? I understand that's the carrot to bring Russ here is to tell him you're going to start. Other than the fact that I know he likes Miami. And I think here's the thing about Russ, okay? a lot of this with Russ has been totally overstated. And now there's this rush to kind of rebuild a lot of the damage that the media has done to him over the past couple of years. But, I saw all those reports about how much he tipped in the bubble and all that. Like, I've heard a lot of really good things about Russ off the court. He's difficult with the media. I didn't like dealing with him the few times I've dealt with him. But he is not what he's painted to be by a lot. And I think in L.A., he became the scapegoat for, let's just be honest, for LeBron's SBN. Essentially. That's what they do. And I see he's not Kyrie, right? He's not as difficult a personality as Kyrie inside. Teammates love him. I saw even on there's a response to a Bleacher Report Instagram post about him tipping in the bubble. PJ Tucker pops up there and comments and says top 3 teammate of all time. His teammates generally love him. They needed a scapegoat in Los Angeles. And I don't even think it's LeBron's people. It's ESPN needs a scapegoat for LeBron all the time. And so, no, it's just true. It's just true. That is a factory. I know how they operate. I saw it from the inside. Okay. So, and Russ became that scapegoat because his playing style doesn't fit with LeBron's, because really he was brought in to be the guy who could initiate the offense and create when LeBron was off the floor. But they ended up playing together all the time, and it was never going to work. And LeBron should have known that. And they had a personal relationship beforehand, which is why he brought him there. But we all know the type of player LeBron fits with, and that's not it. So I think that Westbrook has been kind of unfairly demeaned in a lot of different ways. I don't think his game has fallen off to the point that people think it has. But he is a fit issue with players, okay? He is a fit issue and it's not because he's naturally selfish, I don't think. It's just the way that he plays. He's going to pound the ball for 16 seconds a lot. And him with Tyler, to me, is no better fit than him with Kyle, because Kyle basically just stopped doing anything, right? Almost like in protest, right? Like because Tyler was getting these reps on ball, but Russ isn't going to stop any of that. It's going to look ugly at times. Like if you're bringing in Russ, the purpose of bringing in Russ is for him to run the second unit, I think.
True.
But that's kind of what Vic is supposed to do. And so that's why I don't know if you can just bank on their personal relationship, which apparently is very healthy, and say, okay, you're going to make that work when you don't have at least 2 other shooters on the floor at all times. How would you possibly play Vic, Russ, Bam, and Jimmy together? Like, where is the shooting? You can't. I mean, Max is, and this gets to the whole point. Like, this team can't shoot straight, so it's like if Max doesn't have a good night shooting, they're completely ineffective. So anyway, we spent a lot of time on Russ. I am not totally against the idea. Okay, I'm not, because they need players right now. I mean, they're playing 10-day guys. Okay. But it has to be very carefully crafted. The role for him has to be right. And if his thing is, I want to start, and Chicago can offer a starting spot because they haven't had Lonzo Ball and all that. If his thing is, I want to start, I don't know that you can do that. And also, I don't know if you think Depot is going to play a big role, I don't know how you do that. You know what you almost have to do? You almost would have to put Depot in the starting lineup with Tyler and bring Gabe off the bench with Russ, right? That's a better fit. You're right. Gabe fits better with everybody because he can play on or off the ball.
Tyler's going to have to shoot great for any of that to work, because we're essentially counting on him amongst that group of guards to be the guy who's going to shoot straight. So that also has to be a big element of that. And then just to blitz through these other names before we go to the guys who've been rumored to be bought out. John Wall, I am not in on that. Pat Beverly, that's going to feel excruciating. I do like the idea of Will Barton. Bryn Forbes is that's kind of a troll at this point. And then Ibaka obviously would have his merits within the front court, but I don't know how much 4 he can play. And that's the weird dilemma about this market so far, is that there isn't many of those guys. So from that group, it's Will Barton, which I think he's going to end up going west, or otherwise I'm not crazy about that group.
Everybody's going west. I mean, the trades, everything's going west. The one guy I like is Barton. He didn't play very much this year. He didn't have the role he expected to play. I don't know that skill set that he has goes anywhere for a while, though. Like, I feel like he could help in a limited role. He's got size for a shooter. He's never been a particularly good ball handler, but I feel like you could find room for him. Like that.
He
like
score.
he would. He would fit. Like, he would fit. He could give you relief points. I feel. I've always loved Ibaka, but I don't know what he's got left. I don't think the fact that he's more of a 5 now matters, though. I think you could put him there with Bam. And honestly, I mean, with what we've seen with Orlando Robinson at this point, like, I think Orlando Robinson right now is what he is. Like, you're just hoping he's a flat line when he's out there. He just kind of does what he's supposed to do, and he doesn't hurt them like Dedmon was. Ibaka is a replacement for Bam for 10 minutes. Like, you could do some things. What's that?
In a playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. He knows how to play in playoff games, and you could do some things with him that you do with Bam. You could do some things, even at this stage. And he's a worker from everything I've been told around, so I feel like that of all of those would be the two. I would not look at John Wall at this stage. They hyped him big time with the Clippers this year, and then they didn't want to play him, and that tells you everything. James Johnson, no thank you. Bryn Forbes, I know he outscored Jimmy in one playoff series, but no thank you. And Pat Bev, not at this stage. That's not what this roster needs. No. Just play Gabe if you're going to do it. Just play Gabe. Yep. Like, Gabe is a younger version of him without some of the sideshow stuff. So I would just play Gabe. All right, we're going to talk about some of the other ones who may pop free, because I feel like Heat fans are going to panic about not getting some of the names on this list, but whereas the Heat are looking at a list where, like, other players who are more useful to them may become available. And so it may be smart not to act right away. You just have to have the guy on your roster by March 1st. They have some time if he's going to play in the playoffs. All right, so let's tell you about a couple more sponsors on 5 Reasons Sports Network. Better Edge. You can still do this before the Super Bowl, because we're putting this episode out early for this reason. Go to betteredge.com, enter one of our competitions, or just simply sign up, okay? Simply sign up. This is peer-to-peer gambling. This is not, you're betting against a bookie, and so you got to get paid from Costa Rica, and it's not legal, and you're going to get a knock at your door, okay? None of that, all right? This is peer-to-peer gambling, and so basically you are betting against others on the app or on the web app, okay, which is pretty cool, which is you can also find the line you want. Also, they got props for everything today, like everything, like how long the national anthem is going to be, all that stuff. We're running these competitions. So go to Better Edge. It's BETTOR Edge, EDGE.com. Use that code 5RSN. The reason we tell you that, this number 5RSN, is they'll give you $20 to play. And then just poke around. I mean, you're getting 20 free bucks. Just do it. So go to betteredge.com. Use code 5RSN. Also, Water Cleanup. That's our other sponsor of this episode. We tell you about them all the time. Michael, Robert, and the team, they're based in Boca. They can handle your leaks, your mold, all that kind of stuff. We know that things happen in the house. You got to get them taken care of. Go to people that you can trust. I can tell you they've been doing great work ever since all the issues with the hurricane and everything in Fort Myers. Michael's been going back and forth, helping them out. They're just good people. They do a great job. If they can't do your job, they will tell you, and they're not going to try to do it, try to take your money. It's very hard to find honest contractors. Okay. These people are honest contractors. We have not had any bad stories come back from this, and all the 5-star reviews on Google tell you these are good people. So go to Water Cleanup Florida. The website is WCUFL.com. That's WCU for Water Cleanup FL.com. If you got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
If you're looking to move out of your parents' place, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive, which is good because your little brother has gotten really territorial. You're blood related. You'd think it would be fine to share food in the fridge. I mean, who writes their name on every individually wrapped slice of cheese, Tyler? Still, you've got to admire the commitment. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and use the savings to help you move out and have all the cheese you want. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
Cuando vives en la frontera, tienes lo mejor de dos mundos. Especialmente si la red de AT&T te mantiene siempre local, en Estados Unidos o en México. Y con 4 líneas desde $35 al mes por línea, tengo más para chacharear. Puedo comprar 4 valeros para mí y mis 3 primos. ¡Ay, mi dedo! O sea, ¿dónde en Estados Unidos puedes comprar una cobija San Marcos?
¿León imponente O tigre majestuoso.
O 5 alebrijes de cerámica.
Uy, sorry.
Ok, 4 alebrijes de cerámica. Pero en México o en Estados Unidos, con AT&T soy siempre local.
Usa tu plan en México como en Estados Unidos, sin peros. 2 países, una red. Solo con AT&T. Visita una tienda para conocer más de nuestros planes desde $35 al mes por línea por 4 líneas. Solo para clientes de Estados Unidos se requiere un plan elegible. Precio después del descuento por pago automático y facturación electrónica. Impuestos y cargos adicionales. Sujeto a restricciones.
Lowe's always has more ways for you to save. On top of our everyday low prices, pros can save big when buying in bulk. Or if your purchase is over $1,500, ask about our volume savings program. A pro associate can provide a customized quote. Ask about our volume savings program. To learn more and start saving. Offers subject to change and may not be available in all Lowe's stores.
All right, let's get to it here. Let's get to the rest of this list. I'm going to read this one to you. You tell me what jumps out here. And again, there's no actual definitive reporting about any of these guys. But these are guys who may have lost their roles, and there's been hints of it. So there's a couple big names at the top. Seth Curry, Kevin Love, Kem Birch, who the Heat are familiar with, and I've actually tried to bring back at one point. Nerlens Noel, been a lot of conversation related to the Heat. By the way, he's not represented by Clutch anymore. He sued Clutch. It's probably a point in his favor for the Heat. Danny Green, Justin Holiday, one of the two Holidays, obviously, who the two brothers. Dario Saric, who has been linked to the Heat in some reporting. I have not confirmed that reporting, but he has. Furkan Korkmaz. I can't believe I got that right the first time. Corey Joseph, who has destroyed the Heat at times. Derrick Rose, who could have been had by the Heat a couple of years ago, actually, and has had big games against the Heat even in his sort of post-stardom phase. Thad Young, many times linked to the Heat, and Rashawn Holmes. We don't know, Greg, how many of these guys are going to be out there. Noel seems likely. Danny Green obviously has long history against the Heat. A lot of these guys do. My favorite player on any of these is Seth Curry.
Of course. Yes. There's no doubt. But before we dive into this list, thank you for reading off all of those names so that I did not have to and butcher anybody's pronunciation. I do want to shout out Timothy Bain from the network. Follow Timmy on Twitter. He helped me with this list, and he's super plugged into what's happening where throughout the league. So I just want to give him a individual shout out for helping me compile this list on short notice. Anyway, thank you, Timmy. The other part of this is, as I look at those guys, Seth Curry is duh, he would be great. I think Kevin Love, as much as I've made fun of him in the past, I think that there's also a role for him on this team. Funny enough, Noel and Birch, I think, as backup bigs are fine. I just have a suspicion that they want to see Yurt before they're going to necessarily go all in on a player who can only play the 5. So maybe I'm making too much of that, but that's just my initial thoughts there. So as I look at this list, it becomes Thad Young, or it becomes, is the point guard spot going to be precarious the rest of the way through, whether it be Lowry's health, Lowry's relationship, or inconsistent play from Gabe, or just needing someone to set them up. And when I asked that, I asked around of these guards, if we're really going to speak seriously about guards, because John Wall was the one that was getting laughed at in my text messages. They said, look at Corey Joseph. He's a playoff he's, as good a playoff backup point guard as is out there, and Derrick Rose. And I was surprised by the answer that came behind this. And that's that I guess he and Jimmy are really good friends to some degree. I mean, I'm not going to speculate on their relationship.
Well,
I don't know enough about that.
Here's what I can say. I don't know what the current situation is, but I know this. I know that there was a lot of talk when the two of them played together about problems together. And what I was told, and then various social media posts sort of backed this up, I believe was from Jimmy, that a lot of that was overstated and patched considerably over time. So I do think, as far as I know, the relationship is much better than it was perceived to be, because the Chicago media used to make a big deal out of that. And I've been told that too much was made of that at the time, both by people close to Jimmy, but also by reporters who were kind of in that space at the time. So, I mean, the thing with Derek is, Derek became a better shooter over time, but obviously he's not going to solve your 3-point problem.
No.
Seth Curry solves your 3-point problem. Corey Joseph is interesting, and that is one of those names that, again, the Heat fans are going to gravitate towards Wall and Westbrook and even Pat Bev and guys with bigger names. Corey Joseph just does the job. Like, that's always been the thing. Like, he's a very solid backup point guard. If you are turning the team over to Gabe ostensibly as a 25 to 28 minute a game starter, then Corey Joseph can come in and do a lot of the same things. I don't know where Depot fits in this, but if that's the type of guy you're looking to add backcourt depth,
he's better than John Wall.
Yes. Well, right. Because he fits with everybody. That's the thing. Like, he's a fit. He may not, again, have the pedigree of some of these other guys, but I mean, Corey Joseph came up in the Popovich system. The Heat are very familiar with him. But Seth Curry is the guy who pops. I guess before we close, how would you feel about Kevin Love?
I think they could make it work. I think that obviously the defensive stuff's going to drive me nuts, but I've heard he's gotten better there. I don't watch a lot of Kevin Love, but I would imagine that, he can shoot from the edges. He's a big body that sometimes can go on tangents rebounding. They've become less and less frequent as the years have gone on. And I've been really difficult on Kevin Love. So I have a soft spot to try to rebuild goodwill within the universe with the way that I talk about him. So I'll say that he definitely could find himself with a role, as could Kem Birch or Nerlens Noel. Danny Green gets a little weird because he can't really play the 3. To me, I don't think he can defend that way. So then it's just crowding the backcourt. And does he shoot that much better? I don't know. So that's where I would think that maybe you pivot and go get a guy like Thad Young who can actually play the 4 for an extended stretch. But Seth Curry is definitely the prize on that list, and the player that, although when the backcourt is already crowded, you take a guy who's shooting 42% or more from 3 this year without asking questions.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, kind of my thing with Kevin Love. I covered him for 1 year up in Cleveland. I was always fighting the narrative that he was anywhere near as good as Chris Bosh. So that's kind of where, in good faith. So that's where I come down on it. I haven't I've felt he's been overrated at various stages of his career, but I also feel at this stage of his career that he knows how to play. Okay, he is a spacer, and he does know where the backboard is in terms of getting a rebound. And so, and I know that they've always kind of coveted his skill set. There's a lot that Erik Spoelstra could do with his skill set. So I feel like they may be able to squeeze another few months out of him at least. And maybe at this point, he's kind of understanding, what he is at this point and what he can contribute. I was a little surprised that the Cavs phased him out, but again, they are crowded in the front court, and that's part of what played into it. So, I haven't liked some of the antics over the past couple of years either, but I don't know. I mean, they're playing Orlando Robinson, right? And we never thought they would be playing Orlando Robinson at this stage, and they're counting to a certain degree on Yurt coming back, when we don't even know if Bam and Yurt can play together because they were experimenting with that in the preseason and didn't look great, and then they never got to see it through.
Hey, I have an idea. You think
Yes.
Karan or Malik Allen could suit up? Because I feel like Malik could be the perfect 4 next to Bam.
I feel like Zoe could be the perfect 5 next to Bam, actually, but we'll see where that goes. All right. We'll see if they sign any of these guys. I told you we wouldn't do this episode. I lied. So we did the episode. We will get back to the basketball on the floor over this week. Nuggets Heat on Monday. Nets Heat on Wednesday. Do want to mention before we go, we will be debuting playback. That is really cool, actually. We are going to watch the games with you, members of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. There will be a stream that's up that you can view, and then you can comment with us during the game. This is a new product we're going to be using. If it works, we're going to be using it all the time. We're not changing our pregame or postgame. our between game content, but we are simply adding this during the games. We'll also continue to do Twitter Spaces as we do. We will drive you there from playback at halftime if you want to communicate on that platform. But we're basically going to throw heat in your face all the damn time. So there you go. And then if this works, we'll do it with the Dolphins. We'll do it with the other teams in town if you care. I don't know what a Marlins playback is going to look like on a Tuesday in June against the Cincinnati Reds. But anyway, we'll give it a shot. But we are going to try it with Heat Nets on Wednesday night. So look for details about this on the 5 Reasons Sports Twitter feed. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
The new Dunkin' Brown Butter Toffee Latte raises the bar on what a latte can be. It's got bold espresso and subtle brown butter and toffee flavor notes. If it were a shelf, it'd be the top one. The new Dunkin' Brown Butter Toffee Latte. Elevate your latte. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Terms apply.
If you're looking to move out of your parents' place, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive, which is good because your little brother has gotten really territorial. You're blood related. You'd think it would be fine to share food in the fridge. I mean, who writes their name on every individually wrapped slice of cheese, Tyler? Still, you've got to admire the commitment. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and use the savings to help you move out and have all the cheese you want. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided in service by affiliates and third-party insurers.